All right, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourselves for those who don't know you here.
Go ahead, Kim.
Okay. Hi, I'm Kim Gray, and we're part of the Episcopal Church. We've been directing here at camp for the past 16 years.
I'm Tamison Grants.
And I am Tim Gray. Same. So, yeah.
For the years that you have been leading your group here, what makes Camp Mac a special place? What makes it a sanctuary?
I would start with just the welcome that the staff gives, but beyond that, because we started coming here in '94, was the first year we had camp. We've got at least two generations of campers and now staff that you say camp, and Camp Mac is camp. Mm-hmm. They acknowledge or know that this is run by another camp, but for them, this is synonymous with camp.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And the holy hospitality, that's part of your mission statement, it's just incarnate in the way things happen here. So we feel that every time we're here, we try to be good guests, but more than that, we feel like you have always bent over backwards to make sure that our time here is special and a sanctuary. Not only that, but the nature around us it's just beautiful.
And Kim, the phrase you always use when we're doing our reports to our diocesan staff, we have to do a report to diocesan convention, but that it is not, we don't feel like we rent from Camp Mac, we are in mutual ministry with Camp Mac. And that's an important phrase and an important mindset that the three of us have tried to model as well.
And even though we just rent the camp for 1 week, I think for a lot of the campers and staff, it's a second home. In that week, it becomes a home, and that says a lot. And home comes with positives and negatives and the struggles and the joy, and they come back and they're able to relive that and be ministered to and minister to each other.
And yet here it feels like it's always surrounded by grace, like that fellowship.
And I don't think there's ever been a year we've been at camp where there hasn't been some overlap with other ministries, whether my kids are older than Tim and Kim's, and so it'll be log community or that's a big one, that the Love of God community that's in the Michiana area, and there's always an overlap, connections within the staff here with our staff that is just amazing.
So there's so much that goes into a week of camp, and you have your own traditions. If you could only do one camp activity for the whole summer, what would you spend your summer doing?
Polar bear?
Tell us what polar bear is.
Well, showering at camp is always a dicey experience for some kids. So they're swimming in the afternoon, but we start our day off with an optional polar bear activity. So at 6:45, they go down to the waterfront and they have to be waist up and they jump in the water. And we also have some folklore that goes along with it because the water feels so warm when the air is cold in the morning that we tell them that they turn the heaters on the night before and that they turn those off in the afternoon so it's nice and cool when it's hot outside. So that's kind of fun.
I'm a big fan of the dining hall, I got to admit. I don't love every meal, don't get me wrong, but really the fellowship in the dining hall, and there are some favorite meals, tacos, and I like the burgers. We can go a long way, but just being in that area, whether it was the old Becker Lodge or the new Klein Center and Warsler Hall. But anyways, that time together is mealtime.
Mealtime doesn't always happen for people outside of camp. The family meals are a thing that have sometimes gone by the wayside, and we've tried to keep them, but there's a challenge, and at camp that's not a challenge at all. I think I'd spend my whole summer in front of a campfire. This is the singing and the merriment, the goofiness, but also the holiness and that, what have we called it? Like the heart, this is the original place where you would come to meet.
For me, it's always, it's worship, which I know may not be our campers' favorite, and yet as they get older, and we get a lot of campers that return as CITs and then hang around for it to be on staff as they get older, and the music and the way we worship at camp really informs them as a person, and that's the goal, is to plant the lifelong seeds for that.
With camp, how have you, either you personally or how have you seen your campers really connect with God during their time here?
Can't count the ways. It's too many. But
The phrase that I hear from my personal kids and then my kids that are my youth group kids, or by extension, is that this is the place that they get to be themselves. They don't have to put on any face. They don't have to be any image. They're just them.
Yeah, they're loved for who they are in this space, and that happens every year. I think we've also heard our staff say that they love watching those light bulb moments come on. Like at the beginning of the week, people are a little tentative. There's always the honeymoon phase where everybody's getting along and great, and in the middle of camp, there's always something that goes wrong and people are upset. But by the end of the week, they've traveled this journey together, and there's something that happens, whether it's at devotions, morning program, or worship, where they're putting their arms around each other, or just there's a different light within them that you can see after spending a week in the Holy Spirit.
And there's the stories, the true stories that we know of kids that throughout the week, they don't look like they're having fun, and at the end of the week, there's sometimes they don't even make it through the week, or they go home and you're just thinking that kid will never come back. And we'll either cross paths with them the next year, leading up to camp, and not always, but many times they say, I can't wait to come back. Or the registrations come in the next year, and that same kid will be back after what seemed like not a great week, but it obviously connected, and they wanted to come back.
So with your time, because you've been here 14 years, you said?
16 as directors.
16.
Between us, yeah.
What has been some of the biggest changes that you have seen here at Camp Mac?
The fire at Becker. I mean, that's huge.
Yeah.
That's probably the biggest.
That's the biggest.
Yeah.
And after that, obviously the Klein Center being built, which was a positive, and just miraculous in a lot of ways, the turnaround to get that done in our eyes.
Though we still have staff that mourn the loss of the field that the Becker
Sure.
Yeah.
Center is.
Absolutely.
Yep.
I think, but with the loss of the Becker came an appreciation for other spaces. I mean, we never ever used the Q before, and that has become a real traditional space for us to be in, that people feel like they've always been there now.
Yeah.
And then
Well, we should say the Q is what we call the Quintner Miller Auditorium. We call it the Q.
yeah, and then the Klein Center has become a place to be. It's beautiful inside. It's air conditioned. It's a nice place to have a little bit extra sanctuary on those hot days. And then the upgrades to Ulrich, the outside of it looks beautiful.
Yeah, it does.
So, and then Mission Village, right? That wasn't always there.
That's right. That's
So
right.
that's a favorite space of a lot of people at our camp.
I think the one thing that's stayed the same is as staff has changed, from the top down all over, we continue to be treated like family.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really matter who we're dealing with, and that's a compliment to Camp Mac in the leadership and all the way down to the summer workers. Is we come back to whoever's here, and it feels like home.
Yeah, it does.
Looking towards the future, I know your time in leadership has come to an end, but what's your hopes for Camp Mac as a place, or what's your dreams for this place and your camp?
Well, I would continue to hope to see a partnered ministry, and this is a really special place. And you cannot put a price on that generational memory, I guess. That's really amazing. I love hearing about how you're ministering to outside communities during this time when other people can't be here. So my hope is that you can continue to expand your hospitality, because you're really good at it, and that it's here for a long time.
I think expanding facilities and modernizing and upgrading and all that is very important in a ministry like this, but it's not the end all either. We can hope and dream for great things, and in the end we come back year after year and are happy with what is presented to us and what we have.
People get unhappy if you change too much too quickly.
Yeah. The feeling of being in nature and away decidedly outweighs any sort of lack of the air conditioning comfort. You don't need, and personally I don't want those if I'm going to camp, I want to be in nature, which you do a lot better if you're not sitting in air conditioning. Now, having some place that is air conditioned you can get out of when it's stiflingly hot and use that as an option is great. But overall, that feeling of being part of nature is one.
Do you have any favorite Camp Mac stories or memories that you'd like to share?
I mean, Mike would be one of our favorite camp memories. Mike Hoffman. Yeah, he was a face for us for camp for many, many years. And Tim and him always joked about getting away for a day to go golfing while we were working the week of camp. So he's a memory.
We never did it, though.
I know. He had to retire.
I don't know. We still there was one year, and I'm not going to remember how many years back it was, but there were raccoon babies everywhere at camp that year. And I mean, there were a trio of them that came around, and every morning we woke up and there were usually 2 running around either Ulrich or one of the other spaces, and the other baby was stuck in a trash can. Inevitably, we spent a lot of time dumping trash cans. But we do an ice cream night, and we always leave our, the empty stuff gets put in the trash recycle bins in the queue. And we came in the next morning, and there were little chocolate raccoon prints all over all the guitar cases.
Yeah.
I can list the memories of the midnight calls to Galen for something. And,
like the exploding geyser outside of Ulrich.
And I mean, what a gracious, generous, kind human being, because it doesn't matter the time of day. When you give Galen a call, he comes and doesn't complain and gets the job done. And you see him the next day, and he still says good morning and smiles to you at the normal time. So the one they were doing some plumbing years and years ago right outside of Ulrich, and there's a big ditch right there and all marked off for safety, and you could see the plumbing down there. And we walked by one evening, and there was just a little bit of water down there. And came by about an hour later, maybe 10 or 11 at night, because campers were all in bed, and we were coming back, and there was a little bit of a squirt coming through, and we thought, oh, maybe we should tell someone, but it's not that. I mean, I can't imagine it'll do that much. And we do one more round at midnight to make sure our staff and campers are all tucked in, and we came back. My fellow staff member Matt Carbonneau and I walked back, and the squirting was now above our heads from about 6 feet down. And we both said we should probably call someone. So we called Galen. By the time he got here, it was shooting about as tall as the building. And Galen put his waders on and got his plumbing supplies, shut off the water, and he, until about 2 in the morning, he swapped out the plug or the pipe while we were holding flashlights. And it was
we learned a lot about the different springs that are actually here at camp, and what life-giving water that is. We even did Water World one year at camp, and there were some interesting things that happened. Do the closing service by candlelight, and it ended up being amazing.
It's listed as, when you ask staff members what's one of their favorite memories, that candlelit unplugged worship that we had to do because we had no power.
Yeah.
So one thing that you do is have different themes for each year, and you've shared some of those. What are some of your favorite themes, whether for the growth that's happened or for the irony of what?
My favorite was, I think, our first year directing, maybe, and I think I'm wearing it, summer holiday. And we woke up every morning to a different holiday. So in the middle of summer, we hit Christmas and, of course, Easter, and I think we did All Hallows Eve. And,
so tied into the liturgical calendar.
Okay.
So, and we talked about even some of the more secular holidays that we tied into how they are rooted in our faith. So that was just a fun.
I don't even know if we can pick a favorite one. There's so many. They're just awesome. One, we did the 1 year I directed on my own. Tim and Kim were taking a year off to have a baby. And we did Walkabout, and just the liturgy we did that year, we did Stations of the Cross, and it was unusual. It was just a sort of a new thing that we did, and it was a favorite of mine. I'm not sure if that part of it was a favorite for any of the campers, but it was something different. And at this point, there's been so many themes that they all sort of run together, and happy stories and challenges and things from any one of them. So.
Well, thank you so much for making Camp Mac your sanctuary for the past many years, and blessings on your summer of different activities and looking towards the future. So thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you.